Hello, my name is Movie More, and today we're going to be looking at Enough Said, a 2013 film from Nicole Holofcener as part of my Reel Roulette series of reviews. First, I'm going to have to apologise for my lack of face. There were some issues with the visuals and the audio, and this just seemed like the best way to get it all back together as I didn't really have the time. Hard to explain, but this will just be the one review. So Enough Said stars James Gandolfini and Julia-Louise Dreyfuss in a romantic comedy, but if you are normally not into these types of movies, please don't turn off because there is a lot more going on here. The story centres around Dreyfuss's character of Eva and Gandolfini's character of Albert after they meet at a party. These two are both middle-aged and they have kids, and naturally they start to grow closer to one another and of course end up in a relationship. And for the first act, the first 40 minutes or so of the film, we watch the process of these two growing closer together. There's not really any conflict in these bits. It's not until the beginning of Act 2, as is the case here, that this conflict is thrown in. And in this review, I'm not going to go into it because I don't feel I need to, and I feel if I did tell you much about it, it would be directly detrimental to the actual experience. It's not the most subtle plot beat out there, and I think most people who start watching this film are probably going to have an inkling of this happening, but I don't think it's actually needed for me to accurately convey how good the film is, so screw it. So as I said, it is a long time before we get this conflict introduced, and the process of the first act, watching these two grow closer together, is very enjoyable and rewarding, and I was fully invested. It's just these two central characters and other characters are introduced too, but the main thing in this first act that's going to catch you straight away is how naturalistic and I suppose realistic the dialogue is, which is something that's really hard to actually achieve. It just serves to give this film this very real, like true to life sort of quality to it, and it also helps that this realistic dialogue is actually very funny. Gandolfini especially, but Dreyfuss as well, both give incredible performances and they both play off each other really well. But it did immediately strike me how funny the film was and how well this worked in the enterprise of bringing these two closer together realistically. And the dialogue also has this really warm feeling to it. It was just a really pleasant experience. So I was fully invested, like it completely got me. So despite the lack of narrative momentum, it was actually really enjoyable. When this conflict is brought into the movie, it does continue to truck on, but now it has to juggle the issues and the fallout that this conflict has brought about. And for the most part, I think it does continue to work naturalistically, realistically, and it works well. But there are moments where I feel like the conflict became a bit forced. I hate to use the word again, but this conflict between couples is a really important part of the film. It's integral, and it usually works, but sometimes I just really wasn't buying it. For example, actress Toni Collette and actor Ben Falcone are in a relationship together and they're friends with our central couple. And whilst initially the fact that they're arguing all the time is kind of amusing and funny, at some point you just sort of sit there thinking to yourself, wow, I wish these two would just stop for no reason, just attacking each other and being at each other's throats. Like, can you just have a meal and sit and talk? Why do you have to keep throwing in these contrived issues with one another and keep inflating it into this big thing when you could just sometimes sit and have a meal? I understand why it's here, but it just doesn't feel quite right. That is, at the end of the day, a small part of a film I pretty much enjoyed all the way through. The thing I like most about this film is the sheer number of relevant themes that are juggled for the most part very effectively. Aging, divorce, ideas of comfort, openness, coming to terms with the flaws of others as well as the flaws of yourself. These themes are brought up and handled really well, but obviously from the perspective of two middle-aged people, which is something that I personally do not identify with, as I'm only 20. And I obviously don't think that means I can't enjoy this film, and I actually think it's a testament that I still do. I think if you are the age that this film is tackling the issues with, you will probably identify with it more, but I still think it's handled extremely well. I'm just enjoying it from a different perspective. I really felt it was all done with a very deft hand, and in that respect, the directing and the direction was very good, despite the fact that visually, the film isn't up there with the greats. The look of the film technically does the job. It's no visual feast, but I feel like the strengths of the movie lie inescapably in the screenplay and the acting, and by extension, the characters and conflict resolution. And I really can't stress how good the acting is. It just meant that in combination with the writing, I just enjoyed watching these people operate. And it all ties into what makes it all so funny and enjoyable, even though there were some side conflicts that I didn't really feel were necessary. The film is a brisk hour and a half long, and there is this side plot between Tavi Gevinton's character and Julia-Louise Dreyfuss's daughter. They're both friends. In the movie, Dreyfuss's daughter Ellen, played by Tracy Faraway, is moving to college. But while this is happening, Dreyfuss and Gevinson are getting closer together, and it starts making the daughter feel uncomfortable with how close they're getting. It's almost as if she's being replaced. And it kind of makes sense that this woman is losing her daughter and she's trying to fill a void, maybe even not consciously. I understand the idea and concept, but in the film, it just doesn't. It comes across a little bit almost creepy. Maybe creepy's a bit too far. She's not a predator or anything, but it's something a little bit amiss, and I just don't think it fits in with the natural tone of everything else. There were some minor aspects of conflict resolution in Act 2 that I wasn't a big fan of. And at some points, the sheer number of themes being juggled, it comes apart a little bit, but to be honest, for the most part, it does stick together. There's just a few fractured little moments. But make no mistake, this is a very funny, likeable, warm, thought-provoking, real film with incredible performances that keeps the whole thing together. That is the glue. Overall, I was a little bit torn because there are these clear aspects that are holding the film back, but I can't deny that I have a certain feeling of warmth towards it just because of how likeable so much of it is. It almost permeates through the bad stuff and almost knocks it out, but it just can't be ignored because it does affect the whole experience. There, however, is no world where I don't end up recommending to you Enough Said. I hope you can track down this film and find it. It's definitely worth your time. So I'm going to give Enough Said a 7 out of 10. I really highly recommend you seek out Enough Said. I think there's a good chance you'll like it a bit more than I do. Some things may not annoy you the way they annoyed me, but regardless, please find it. Definitely worth your time. And as this was a Reel Roulette video, all that's left to do is to find the next film. And the next film picked from a list of nearly 7,000 is 1970's Airport, which off the top of my head is the film that Airplane is directly spoofing. So that'll be a nice little movie to visit and compare to that. I'll be back with a review of that soon, and the last thing to say is rest in peace, James Gandolfini, a fantastic actor. This was his penultimate film. You did a great job, and you have been sorely missed since, and you will continue to be sorely missed. Thank you.